Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for Robbie Rants. And today, we're going to be talking about Flash 22, the final part of The Button. That's right, everybody. The final part of The Button is here, and we are going to talk about it. So spoiler warning, we're going to talk about and show you everything that happens in Flash number 22, new this week, the final part of The Button. Thank you once again for checking out the channel. It is time to talk about The Button. So, I have been doing some videos about the individual, button issues and chapters. I did miss issue 3, so let's talk about that real quick. That was Batman number 22. It was basically a really personal and cool conversation between Bruce Wayne Batman and his father Thomas Wayne, who was the Batman in the Flashpoint timeline. Apparently someone's been keeping these missing timelines and done with timelines, all these timelines that no longer are supposed to exist. Someone's been holding them in stasis, possibly in the Speed Force. Flashpoint is one of those. So you have this really cool conversation between Bruce and Thomas as the timeline is finally collapsing, as his Batcave is under siege by the Atlanteans and the Amazonians. So that was really cool. Basically what you get out of that, though, at the end of it, before Batman and Flash, Barry and Bruce escape, Thomas tells his son, stop being Batman. Do it for your mother's sake. Stop being Batman. So that's obviously something that's going to resonate with the character Batman in the coming months. So that's really cool. It's a really cool issue. Fabok's artwork was amazing. Yet again, it was a little odd to see most of the issue be like this action scene, like a fight scene between the Flashpoint villains, basically. That was a little odd, but what was really cool is after they leave and the timeline disappears, so Thomas Wayne is gone and done. We aren't going to go back there, I guess, again. But basically they see Reverse Flash again, and that's really cool. Reverse Flash is now on the way to his demise that we saw at the beginning of The Button at the end of the very first chapter. And so that's where we pick up when we get into Flash number 22. So first of all, super cool cover. Jay Garrick, I think he's got something to do with this issue. Let's talk about it. It basically picks up, and so Flash and Batman are now chasing Reverse Flash, and Reverse Flash, we know, is going to find who this button belongs to or where it came from or whatever's connected to it, and he's going to go find it, and he thinks that he will be fine because Barry says, you're going to die. We know you're going to die. We've seen this happen. Eobard Thawne, who is Reverse Flash, does not believe him and says, I'm something different. He's like kind of arrogant. Maybe it's because he's a time traveler. He's gone through dimensions and he's caused change himself in reality. So maybe that's why he feels like he's separate and different, but he's on his way and they're following him and they're like, no, we're going to stop you. And a blue flash of energy separates Reverse Flash from Batman and Flash just for a little bit so that Reverse Flash gets to where he's going before they do. This blue energy signature, we believe, is connected to Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen. So Reverse Flash gets to it looks like it's a floating asteroid, some kind of floating rock abandoned in some kind of space, empty space, right? So he gets there and he's like, I know this is your button, I know what you've done, you've changed the timeline, you've done things I can't understand, but I'm different, I can understand. If you let me, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden he starts freaking out and he's like, whoa, wait a second, I didn't even realize, I didn't even know. And he gets zapped and he starts dissipating and burning away and disappears. We know he will reappear at the end of the first chapter of The Button, where we saw him die after saying and confessing that he saw God. So that's really cool. So then as Batman and Flash are following him, they're not there yet, this has now happened, they're going, and Barry starts hearing a voice, and he's like, remember me, Barry, remember me, say my name, it's me. Their cosmic treadmill is once again breaking up, and Barry's like, maybe this voice is from another timeline that doesn't exist anymore. And Batman's like, no, Barry, my father was real. This is all real. And then all of a sudden, bam, Jay Garrick appears. That's right, Jay Garrick, the original Flash. He's right here on the cover, so you knew he was going to be there. But Jay Garrick shows up, the original Flash. Barry or Bruce, they don't remember him anymore. He's like, do you not remember me? Come on. Like, this is mirroring that scene from DC Rebirth #1, the one-shot from last year, where Wally was allowed to come back because Barry finally remembered Wally West, and that was the lightning rod, if you will, that allowed him to zap back into existence. That did not happen this time. So Jay Garrick shows up and he uses what power and energy he has has to allow Bruce and Barry to go back home. But then he disappears once again in a blue flash of energy, supposedly to wherever his timeline is being held. So the Justice Society of America is out there held somewhere in a pocket dimension outside of time and space, outside of the typical DC universe by Dr. Manhattan for some reason. Removing the JSA is one of the things that led to the timeline of the New 52 and the shortened timeline and this and that or whatever. So those of us who wanted DC Rebirth to herald a return to the former continuity, that of course has happened, especially with things like Superman Reborn, and the button confirms that, where you see a lot of the history because of the trophy room that we saw in chapter 2 of the button. A lot of the history is coming back, and Jay Garrick is mentioning the JSA, or he's part of the JSA. We have seen the Justice Society mentioned by Johnny Thunder. So Barry says, maybe I wasn't able to bring Jay back because he needs a different lightning rod. I believe that lightning rod to be Johnny Thunder, absolutely. So the JSA, they're out there, they're pulled aside. DC editorial, they are addressing this, they're talking about it. The JSA will be returning, and I think it's going to be a key factor in this whole thing. So Jay does that thing. Basically, it's all over, and they're like, we have no idea what happened with the mystery of the button. Bruce is now going through some kind of crisis, and he's like, no, the case is still open. It's not closed yet. Barry's like, I don't know who our suspect is. God? Like, for real, God? So Batman knows things are not quite up, but he also knows a whole lot more because of his connection with Superman and what's been happening with the Superman books and Superman Reborn. So that's interesting. But overall, this book was a little underwhelming, I feel, because it didn't really quite deliver on its promise from the very beginning. Now, let me get into this real quick. So Batman is sitting there and he's chilling, and what's going to resonate with Batman are the words that his father spoke to him. Don't be Batman. So it ends on Batman with him standing there and he sees the bat signal, but he's ignoring it, and his father's words are going over and over in his head. And Alfred shows up and he goes, are you going to answer that, sir? And it doesn't seem like he's gonna. So obviously that's something that Tom King is going to pick up in future issues of Batman in the coming months. So that's really nifty. And then the very, very last thing you see is the button. The button is laying there. It's the Watchmen button with the blood splatter. And then all of a sudden, you see a blue hand and arm reach up, pick up the button. The energy comes over and takes it over. Then all of a sudden, epilogue in very much the Watchmen style with yellow lettering on a black background. You see the button, you see emptiness, and you see the button closer, and it's getting closer and closer. This is a thematic style from the Watchmen, where they get closer to things and then come out on things. So they get closer to the button until all you can see is the red of the blood and the yellow of the button, and then they zoom out and it's the red and the yellow of the Superman S shield, and it looks a little tattered and beaten up, and then it says Doomsday Clock is coming. So that's really cool. I felt this was underwhelming because, first of all, the announcement of Doomsday Clock, which happened days before this issue came out, kind of spoiled a lot about where we were going, where we were leading to. It is now pretty much confirmed that Dr. Manhattan is the entity that has messed with the DC universe and is responsible for things like the New 52 and DC Rebirth and Superman and all that stuff. So it was a really cool, the button overall was really, really cool in the way that it dealt and addressed that. But what was the problem with the button was that the first, like, I honestly did not think that the button was going to give us too much information when it first started. But the first chapter was crazy awesome and fast paced, and I was like, what's coming now? And the button turned out to be a lot more personal type stories, and I liked that. And the scene with Batman and his father really hit home, and Jay and Barry, the way it reflects with the Wally and Barry scene from DC Rebirth, it had great emotional beats. There's nothing wrong with this story arc. There's only something wrong with what it seems like we were promised after the first issue. So maybe it would be different if the announcement of Doomsday Clock didn't happen until I actually read this issue, and that would be a completely different type situation. But overall, I did feel like it was just slightly underwhelming because of that. I felt like after the first issue, it really kind of slowed down and didn't really give us too much. Plus, one more thing is that Detective Comics last week, we know that the last page was altered. It was edited, it was changed because supposedly it gave away something that happened in the button. And the original ending, and if you don't want to know, then you don't have to watch the rest of the video, but I want to talk about this real quick. The original ending of that is Batman telling Batwoman that he knows, because of the events of the button, that Tim Drake is alive and he's going to go find him. And if you look, even on the cover, and I'll zoom in real quick, but seriously, that's Tim Drake on the cover. So originally, it seems like Tim Drake was supposed to be in this issue. At some point, Batman was supposed to find or hear Tim Drake and know that he was alive and pulled away. So one thing, for instance, is we already knew Dr. Manhattan was the reason all this is happening. We already knew that, right? So that is confirmed, and that is cool. But this did not address anything about the Mr. Oz situation, which I was really hoping for, especially with the Tim Drake stuff. I thought there's going to be a lot more. I really thought that, I mean, obviously it seems like Tim Drake was supposed to be originally part of this issue, and then somehow they decided not to do that, but whatever. So it didn't address anything about Mr. Oz, but that's fine, because I think that's going to be coming in Superman comics. And Mr. Oz cannot be Ozymandias at this point. They just let it go on for too long. But then again, they've let us go on and on and on about the Dr. Manhattan thing for a long time now, even though we knew it was Dr. Manhattan. And now they've showed us Dr. Manhattan, or at least a part of him, but they still haven't just full out did it. But Doomsday Clock is coming, and I love that it's coming. It's going to be in November. It's going to be 4 issues. It's kind of coinciding with the end of Doomsday Clock, should coincide with the 1000th issue of Action Comics, so that's really, really cool. It seems like everything's culminating here, but they have still yet to address the 3 Jokers thing or who Mr. Oz is. So the button is a little disappointing that it didn't reveal as much as I thought it would reveal after the first issue, but it did reveal as much or just a little bit more than what I thought was going to be revealed when I initially heard about the button. So I didn't expect like Dr. Manhattan just to show up and be like, hey, I'm Dr. Manhattan and I've messed with your reality, or anything like that. So overall, I did like the button. It does have some really cool emotional beats. It is a little inconsistent in its art because you got this realistic and gritty Jason Fabok artwork, and then this very angular and dynamic and comic booky Howard Porter artwork that kind of flip-flops. But overall, it has the emotional beats. It hits them. It's great. It's fun. But the first chapter is the best chapter. And if your first, is the best part of your whole story, there is a little bit of a problem with that. Though I would say that maybe without the announcement of Doomsday Clock, it would have had much more of an impact when I got to the end of this book. But, another thing, it ends with a quote, just like all the issues of Watchmen do. It ends with the quote, "There are poisons that blind you and poisons that open your eyes." And then, of course, the big split page, Doomsday Clock, and we're closer to midnight, and midnight is the Superman S emblem. So that's super, super cool. It seems like Doomsday Clock is basically going to be about Superman versus Dr. Manhattan, and I love that. I love this DC Rebirth Watchmen thing, and one of the reasons why I love it is because, first of all, Watchmen was a commentary on superhero comics, and now we are using superhero comics as a commentary on Watchmen and what Watchmen has done to our popular fiction and media. So that is super cool. I love stuff like that. I love this Reverse Flash time travel type stuff. Apparently he's coming back as a villain again in an upcoming Flash issue. I'm very excited. I love all this time travel, other dimensional crisis type stuff. I just love it. It's one of my favorite things about DC Comics. So overall, I did like the button, but I do feel like the ending was slightly underwhelming. But it will be okay. But DC really needs to address the Mr. Oz thing, because it can't be Ozymandias, right? At this point, it's just been going on for too long. And in fact, at this point, I do not believe that any character from the Watchmen, aside from Dr. Manhattan, is involved in any of this or is even going to show up. I think Dr. Manhattan is solely it. No Ozymandias, no Night Owl, no Rorschach, no Silk Spectre. I don't think they're there. I don't think Ozymandias is there. Mr. Oz is someone completely different, I think. It's not any of those guys. I think Manhattan is the only figure from the Watchmen that's going to play into this. At least that's what I'm picking up on it right now. Mr. Oz, you got to address that. You got to go ahead and reveal who that is, and it better be mind-blowing when it happens. And they really need to address the 3 Joker thing, because that is something they have not even touched on. But of course, with Tom King doing the war of jokes and riddles, hopefully we will get into that, though we shall see. But DC really needs to address the 3 Joker thing. I guess that lays on Tom King or Scott Snyder. And if you guys are watching the video, you need to address that. And also, if you're watching the video, thank you guys. You guys rock, so that's awesome. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Let me know down below, what did you think of the button? Did you like it? Did you think it was underwhelming? Did you like how it kind of led into Doomsday Clock? Are you excited about Doomsday Clock? Let's talk in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything. Please do like, share, and subscribe. I do a weekly comic book review every single week. We also do movie reviews, toy reviews, top 5 lists, blogs, podcasts, all that and more. Can be found at popculturephilosophers.com. So thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.